Good evening to this press conference. First, we have a signing of the UK-Finland statement. It is signed by the President of Finland, Sauli Niinisto, and Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson. Yeah.
Shall I start?
Okay. And now follow statements by the President and Prime Minister. President Niinisto, please.
Thank you. First of all, Mr. Prime Minister Boris, thank you. It's very valuable to have you here, and we have had a very good conversation, continuing that we already started in London.
At the Jeff?
Yep, in Jeff. I've learned that one always measures friendships by how they show up in bad weather. They say this is attributed to Winston Churchill. Maybe you know better whether that is or not, but nevertheless it describes the situation today in Europe. We are great friends, Finland and UK, and strong security partners. We signed joint statement. We will stand together and support each other in any circumstances, in good and bad weather. Deepen the cooperation we already have in CEF, specifically on defense, hybrid threats, other critical areas of security. That's what we are doing. Here in Finland, we appreciate UK's strong support to NATO's open door policy and Finland's potential membership. That is also very valuable to us. And I told that after my visit in London, it was very encouraging for us to hear your opinions and your support. These decisions, they strengthen our own security here in Finland and that of Europe and that of the whole NATO world, especially if we join. For us, joining NATO would be not against anybody. We would like to maximize our security in way or another while thinking membership in NATO. But it is not a zero-sum game. If Finland increases its security, it's not away from anybody else. We have both condemned the Russian warfare in Ukraine. We have both been helping Ukraine and Ukrainian people and do continue that. With these words, please.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Mr. President Sauli Niinisto, and thank you very much for hosting me today. It is wonderful to be here in Helsinki this evening at a pivotal moment in our shared history. It's pivotal because, as I also discussed with colleagues, with the Prime Minister Andersson in Sweden, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has changed the equation of European security, and it has rewritten our reality and reshaped our future. We've seen the end of the post-Cold War period, and the invasion of Ukraine, sadly, has opened a new chapter. And that invasion has already failed for two reasons. Firstly, because of the unbreakable spirit of the Ukrainian people who have fought back and rallied the world behind them. And second, because that Ukrainian struggle for freedom, that heroic fight, has brought the world together in condemnation of this assault on our values. And it would be fair to say that it has also brought Finland and the UK even closer together today. So the security declaration, the solemn declaration we've signed today, ensures that our two nations can intensify our partnership and take it to unparalleled heights, both latitudinal and metaphorical. From the high north to the Baltics and beyond, our armed forces will train, operate and exercise together, marrying our defence and security capabilities and formalising a pledge that we will always come to one another's aid. Because this is not a short-term stopgap, Sauli. This is not a short-term stopgap as you consider NATO membership, but an enduring assurance between two nations, an assurance that brings us ever closer as we face the challenges of today, the threats of tomorrow, side by side. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, President. Thank you, Prime Minister. Now we go to questions. Language of this press conference is English. First question goes to Patrick Holmström, Svenska Yle.
Thank you. Mr. Prime Minister, will there be British boots on the ground on Finnish territory if Finland asks for it during a possible conflict with Russia, and how are you prepared for this? And Mr. President, is this security declaration
clear? And what it says is that in the event of a disaster or in the event of an attack on either of us, then yes, we will come to each other's assistance, including with military assistance, but the nature of that assistance will of course depend upon the request of the other party. But it's also intended to be the foundation of an intensification of our security and our defence relationship in other ways as well.
Yes, like we heard, this cooperation, it increases enormously Finnish security. But security needs all the possible ways if we want to maximize our security. This is a very, very good way to go forward. And we do appreciate a lot this big step which is now taken.
Following question, ITV News, Raigi Omar.
Thank you very much, Raigi Omar, ITV News. My first question is to you, President Niinisto. You said that joining NATO is not against anyone and that this is not a zero-sum game. But through joining NATO, there is now going to be a military ring around Russia that runs from the Arctic, through the Baltics, through Central Europe, all the way to Turkey. Does that not pose quite a lot of danger, given the world view of Vladimir Putin, who doesn't see things not as a zero-sum game, because you have an 800-mile border with Vladimir Putin and the Russian government? And my question to you, Prime Minister, is that the British military has gone through decades of underinvestment. We're now at around 73,000, I believe, in terms of force of the army, something that was expressed by the outgoing top general of the British Army, who said he was uncomfortable with the size of the British military. Do you think that our military assurances, given that scenario, are coherent and valid and effective? Thank you.
First of all, we have to keep in mind that Finland is already an enhanced partner in NATO. There's no doubt in anybody's mind that Finland is part of the West, like we have learned to call it. So the change would not be that radical. When we think about security, we think how to defend our country. And if we want to maximize our security, that means to maximize defense of our country. And when I say that it's not away from anybody, well, nobody can hurt because somebody wants to protect herself. So, in my thinking, this is quite simple, actually. We increase our security and we do not take it away from anybody. It is not a zero-sum game.
And I just want to echo completely what Sauli has just said. NATO is a defensive alliance. NATO poses no threat to anyone. It is there for the purposes of mutual defence. And just on your point about the UK's capability to deploy, well, look at what's happening already. The UK is up in the High North Operation Cold Response. We're deployed in the Baltics, in Estonia. We're deployed in Poland, in Romania, in Cyprus, in the Eastern Mediterranean. Across that whole eastern flank, you see the UK increasingly deployed, and that's because we've been able to make record investments in our armed services, the biggest since the end of the Cold War, and we will continue to support our armed services. I think 2.4% when our spending of our GDP on defence, huge sums, and we make these commitments to our friends in Finland, not just because we can make them, and we certainly can, but also because we must.
Next question again to the Finnish side, Finnish News Agency, and Mikko Gustafsson.
This one is for both Mr. Prime Minister and Mr. President. Prime Minister Johnson has called this declaration historic. What's the main difference before and after the declaration? And can you tell us any concrete examples?
Okay. Like we both said, we have been cooperating, especially with the CHEF combination, but we haven't had any clear bilateral agreements how we deal with each other, and now it is done. And we have to keep in mind that in this agreement we state also that we will enhance our cooperation in very different sectors. And that's not only a written word, we will also do that. So I understand that it's getting forward, like I said, quite a big step from where we have already been.
Yes, and I completely agree with that, because Finland has, of course, traditionally been neutral, but this is formalising and making clear something that needs to be made explicit in the context of today, and that is that in the event of an attack on either of us, we will come to each other's support upon request. And as Sauli has just said, it goes further than that, in the sense that it also means that we will cooperate further on intelligence sharing, on taking care to protect ourselves against cyber warfare, on defence procurement, on joint exercises, which we already do together, as Sauli was just saying. So all those we will now develop, and this declaration will be the basis for further work.
And following questions, Nick Ferrari, LBC Radio.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. President, were you to join NATO, do you fear it could be seen as a provocative gesture by Vladimir Putin? And, Mr. President, if not, why not? Mr. Prime Minister, no country on the planet has sent more financial aid, military aid to the Ukraine than the United Kingdom. Reports of £2 billion and rising. Yet back home, we also hear that pensioners spend all day in the library because they can't afford to heat the home, and one man set fire to some driftwood to try and get warm. To those who say you're very good at supporting Ukraine, but you're lamentably poor at supporting your own people, how would you respond?
Yes, you have to keep in mind that this is not the first time we are discussing about NATO, and not the first time we will discuss about NATO with Russia. They have made it very clear earlier years that if you join NATO, they will do whatever they have explained, some contra steps. What they are, that is for us to guess. But now I got to get a bit deeper. The situation changed. So far, even Russia has said that having militarily non-aligned Finland and Sweden, that will stabilize Baltic Sea. That's what they have been talking. But then, in the end of last year, they stated that Finland and Sweden can't join NATO. They demanded that NATO doesn't take new members. Actually, they changed their own picture by that, because we have, with Sweden, been non-aligned militarily from our own will. But by stating that, Russia actually expressed that you don't have your own will here. And that is a huge change. That made us think. And what happened in 24th February, which continues the huge warfare Russia is having in Ukraine, surely that changed also the picture. They are ready to attack a neighboring country. So, when you ask how they see possible Finnish joining, well, if that would be the case that we join, well, my response would be that you caused this. Look at the mirror.
So, Nick, what we've got to do right now is help people through the aftershocks of the COVID pandemic, just as we help people through COVID, and we will. And we will have the maximum energy, effort, ingenuity to help the British people through them. And everybody knows how tough it can be right now, but we're going to get through it just as we got through COVID. And you know all the money we're already spending. There will be more, of course there will be more support in the months ahead as things continue to be tough with the increase in the energy prices. But I just want to explain to people why it is so important that we stand strong against aggression in Ukraine at the same time. Because there is no doubt at all, looking at what Vladimir Putin has done, that this, if he were not to be resisted, this would not be the end, as Sauli has just said. This would not be the end of his neo-imperialist, revanchist ambitions. And just imagine the consequences, not just military or political, but economic, of further Russian aggression against any of the other former parts of the Soviet Union. And it's to prevent that further catastrophe that it's so important that we are together strong now, and Finland has been very strong too. And just to be clear, the only reason we're able to be strong in the way that we are is, of course, because we've had a strong economic recovery from COVID. We've just got to make sure that we help people through the aftershocks, and we certainly will. But it would be a huge mistake to think that it is the economic answer is to let Putin get away with his barbaric behavior in Ukraine. That would be a disaster for the global economy, apart from anything else.
President, Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen of the press, this concludes this press conference. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.